my name is Danny, and in this video we're going to be talking about how to build major scales so that we can understand what notes belong to each key. We're also going to be talking about an organization tool called the circle of fifths, which helps us memorize how many sharps and how many flats are in each key. Let's jump right in. So by now you guys should already know the basics of basics, what the musical alphabet is, what a whole step and what a half step is, and what a sharp and a flat is, and the major scale formula. Let's jump into the major scale formula. We already know that if I apply this formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, I get the sound of the major scale. I can apply this formula to whichever note that I want, and I get the same sound, just in a different key. The difference between these different keys is not only their sound, but how many sharps and how many flats are in these keys. Let's take a look at the key of C. The key of C has no sharps or flats, because if I apply that formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, all the notes are natural, meaning there are no sharps and flats. I have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Let's apply this formula to the key of G. If I start on G and I go up a whole step, I have A, whole step B, half step C, whole step D, whole step E. Now from E, I need a whole step. So I need to sharp F to create my whole step. Because remember, from E to F is a half a step. I need a whole step. That's why, and a half step back to G. That's why there's one sharp in the key of G. Let's apply this to the key of D. Whole step, there's my first sharp, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step. There's my second sharp, half step. The key of D has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Let's do one more, the key of A. The key of A has three sharps, and here's why. If I apply the formula, whole, I need a whole step, so C becomes C sharp, half step to D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp. Here's my third sharp, G sharp, whole step. Because from F sharp to G sharp is a whole step, and a half step leads me back to my root, which is A. Three sharps. So these are all the notes that belong to the key of A. It's important as a musician, especially as we dive into building chords and using the number system, that we know that the third degree of an A major scale is not C. According to the major scale formula, it's a C sharp. So some keys have sharps in them. Let's talk about the keys that have flats in them. Let's go over a few. Let's take the key of F. The key of F has one flat. Let's apply the formula. Beginning on F, we have a whole step, G, whole step, A. Here's where our first flat comes in. I need a half step, so B becomes B flat. A whole step will bring me to C, whole step D, whole step E, and a half step brings me back to my root, which is F. That's why there's one flat in the key of F. Let's look at another flat key. Let's do the key of E flat. Whole step brings me to F, G, whole step. Half step brings me not to A flat. Whole step to B flat. Whole step to C. Whole step to D, and half step back to E flat. So the key of E flat has how many flats? You guessed it, 3. So how do we begin to memorize what all the sharps are to each key, or what all the flats are to each key? We use a tool called the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths is not the reason why there are 3 sharps in the key of A. The reason why there are 3 sharps in the key of A is because the major scale formula. But the circle of fifths is a memorization tool to help us memorize all of that. So diving right into the circle of fifths, we have a large circle. And in this circle, at 12 o'clock of the circle, I'm going to write C. C is our key that has no sharps or flats. From there, we're going to be going in clockwise motion to begin to understand what keys have sharps in them and how many sharps are in each key. As we progress in each key, we will be moving in fifths. So if we start in the key of C, the outer circle has our keys, and I will write in the middle of the circle, next to the key, what sharps are in that key. The very first key is the key of C. If we apply that major scale formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, there are no sharps or flats. So I'm just going to write a little 0 next to C, so that we know that there's no sharps or flats in that key. If I go 5 steps inside the major scale of C, C being 1, we have C, D, E, F, G. G is going to be our next key. So I'll write G next. G is going to have 1 sharp. If we apply that major scale starting on G, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, whole step from E to F, we get F sharp. Half step back to G. G has 1 sharp. Let's do the next key before I dive into what's called the order of sharps. So let's go 5 steps in the key of G. Starting on G as 1. G, A, B, C, D. The 5th degree in a G major scale is D. That's also going to be our next key that has 2 sharps. Those 2 sharps are going to be F sharp and C sharp. So when I'm building a D major scale, it's going to go D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, back to D. Now before we move on to our next key, it's important to understand that the sharps that we're putting in each key, they're also in a specific order. We call this the order of sharps. Let's go over all of the order of sharps that we'll be applying. The first sharp is F sharp, second C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp. A great acronym to memorize this order of sharps would be this following sentence. First, Charlie goes down and eats breakfast. I know it's silly, but if you memorize it, you'll be very happy you did. Let's say it again. First, Charlie goes down and eats breakfast. This tells us what our order of sharps is. Let's look at the key of G. The key of G has 1 sharp. We're going to use the first sharp in the order of sharp. The second key is the key of D, has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. We're now using the first 2 sharps of the order of sharps to apply to that. Now let's go to our third key. Starting on the D, let's go 5 steps up in the key of D. D, E, F sharp, G, and A. Our next key will be the key of A. The key of A has 3 sharps. So let's grab the first 3 sharps in the order of sharps. F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. When creating an A major scale, those are the 3 sharps. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. Let's go on to our next key. So starting from A, let's go 5 steps up. A, B, C sharp, D, and E. Our key with 4 sharps is going to be the key of E. The first sharp is F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. Remember, we're just adding a sharp from the order of sharps each time. So if we were to build an E major scale, one would be E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, back to E. Let's go to our next key, starting on E, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. The key of B has 5 sharps: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. I know this is starting to sound monotonous, but let's keep going so that we understand each note that belongs to each key. So building a B major scale, we'll have B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, back to B. Notice how we're growing in sharps. Let's look at this key on the piano. Starting on B, whole step would be C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, back to B. 5 sharps. So as we continue to move up the circle of fifths, the next key would be F sharp with 6 sharps. So those sharps would be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp. And our final key for sharps would be the key of C sharp. If the key of C has no sharps or flats, then the key of C sharp is going to be all sharps. So C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and B sharp. And that's all 7 sharps. Remember, we call this the circle of fifths because if we're moving in clockwise motion around the circle, the keys move up by fifths. Notice how each sharp in the order of sharp is also in fifths. It's a helpful tool to help us remember and organize this. So if moving clockwise is the circle of fifths, if we were to move counterclockwise, we would get the circle of fourths. And this is how I like to teach our flat keys, is going in the opposite direction. So let's go back to C being our center with no sharps or flats. If I were to go to the left 4 steps in the key of C, I'll have F, C, D, E, F. That's going to be my first key with 1 flat. And that flat is going to be B flat. So remember, building an F major scale, the 4th degree is a B flat because I need a half step between A and B. So I get a B flat. Then C, D, E, F. The next key, if I move 4 steps from F, would be B flat. B flat will have 2 flats, B flat and E flat. Now, just like we did with the sharps, before we go on to our next flatted key, let's go over what the order of flats would be. The order of flats is the order of sharps in reverse. So we start with B flat, the second flat would be E flat, third would be A flat, the 4th would be D flat, the 5th would be G flat, the 6th would be C flat, and the last one would be F flat. B, E, A, D, G, C, F, which was the reverse of F, C, G, D, A, E, B. So our third flat key would be E flat if I'm moving 4 steps in the key of B flat. B flat, C, D, E flat. The key of E flat will have 3 flats: B flat, E flat, and A flat. As we continue on with the circle of fifths, our next key would be the key of A flat with 4 flats. The next key would be the key of D flat with 5 flats. The next key would be G flat with 6 flats. And our final key, which is C flat with all the flats. In the previous video, we talked about what an enharmonic was. And that simply put is when you have 2 names for 1 note. For example, D flat and C sharp is the same exact note. If I was in the key of D flat, I would call this note obviously D flat. The next note would be an E flat. But if I was in the key of C sharp, which is the same note, these 2 notes would be called something completely different. It would be a C sharp, and the next note would be a D sharp. It's important that if you're in a flat key, that you only have flats that are diatonic, which means belonging to that key. It's important that if you're in a sharp key, like the key of F sharp or C sharp, that you have only sharps. So the best way to memorize how many sharps or how many flats are in each key is to first memorize the order of sharps and the order of flats. Because when you can remember first Charlie goes down and eats breakfast, then all you have to memorize is that the key of G has one sharp, and you can quickly recall the first sharp is F sharp. So when I'm building a G major scale, I just need to make sure that I add that sharp to F. If I know my musical alphabet, I can say the scale from G to G, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and make sure I apply that sharp to F. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Let's do the same thing for the key of B. If I memorize that the key of B has 5 sharps, I can quickly recall what those sharps are by memorizing the order of sharps. First Charlie goes down and there's my first 5 sharps. So when I'm playing a B major scale, I know what those sharps are and I can quickly recall those. So the whole goal of understanding the circle of fifths is to help you quickly memorize which notes belong to each key by really understanding how many sharps and how many flats belong to each key. The goal is for us to quickly recall those things and not have to go first Charlie goes down or memorize all the different aspects of it. It becomes overwhelming. But take it step by step. First, take the key of C and memorize that there are no sharps and flats to that key. Then you can memorize maybe the next day the key of G has 1 sharp, and you know what that sharp is because you've memorized the order of sharps, F sharp. And then the next day you've memorized 3 different keys or 4 different keys, and you're slowly building your memory of each key. Before we jump into building chords, it's very important that you know who plays for what team. Because when we're building chords, we're grabbing notes from those keys. And as we create harmony, you have to know what notes belong to each key. Thank you guys for joining us today, and please watch our next video as we talk about intervals, which is the distance between 2 notes.